it is 10 o'clock, is your best recommendation and opinion after all of this discussion, after researching the law, after researching all the codes, whether or not you stand on this language? And if you do, then I'm going to call for the vote to introduce, because I see the dilemma, and we can nuance this until the cows come home, and that's not the point. We're all volunteers here, and we need to move on. This is chewing up so much of our time and staff's time. It's simply, at the end of the day, if you're going to kill it, then kill it. Whatever. But this is really, this. I think we have enough information here that we can say, let's introduce it, standing on that language, give it the public comment time it deserves. Look at some of this other language that Kathy can work on and move forward. Or if you're not comfortable with it, then we don't introduce it.
I believe you should go around the table like you normally do and ask for opinions first, and so we each
Absolutely. I haven't been able to even get to that point yet, Trustee Kate, so I would like to do that.
Fine.
Okay? You're engaging in a debate with your village attorney.
You
that makes
asked,
no sense.
you indicated that the issue should be
clearly
dealt
stated
with.
your points. Trustee Brins?
I haven't stated my points on the ordinance, so you raised the issue of the condominiums.
Right.
Fine.
Yes.
Go around again?
We're going around on whether or not this language on the condominium. Kathy, why don't you state the fundamental issue that you wanted to know where the council stood, and then vote to introduce or not. So why don't you state what that is, and then we'll go around and see where.
My understanding of the council's policy direction up to today has been that we are excluding everything in the single-family residential districts. We are excluding everything outside of the commercial districts, and that within the commercial districts we are excluding only residential condominiums and the areas of the building that are occupied by residential condominiums. In my opinion, I have drafted recitals that I think would be sustainable and lead to a sustainable ordinance if you proceed along those lines. The biggest problem we have is because, unlike any other jurisdiction, we are trying to carve exceptions into this property maintenance code. When you start carving out things based on who owns what and leaving it to the vagaries of whether the ownership is by somebody of a residential unit as opposed to somebody who's a commercial, the bottom line is that the commercial space becomes an investment. The building structure becomes an investment for everybody who is in that condominium association. And when you are looking at it from that standpoint, in my mind, and my recommendation to you is that we not parse this and split it any further, that this has gone far enough, and that my recommendation would be to proceed with that distinction as it's drawn in this draft.
Thank you, Kathy. All right, so would you like to, Trustee Cates, address that?
I think I've addressed it more than enough.
Good. Well, then, because I don't want you saying, oh, I haven't had a chance to speak on it.
No, but what I'm saying is when we get to the actual ordinance,
well, we can get to
different.
Introduction, then we'll talk about that.
Yes.
Trustee Rins.
I'm getting confused. I'll just tell a little story, because that's the only way. I only work in the practical world. All of this legal stuff kind of leaves me in the dust for the most part. That's why I pay attorneys to do what they do, and that's why when my attorney tells me that we should go a certain way, I tend to agree with them after I've thought about it.
Right.
And if it feels okay, I move forward. That's what we pay our attorneys to do. That's what we pay engineers to do. And if it doesn't feel right, then you push harder, you second guess, you debate it a little bit, and you see if there's another way around.
Trustee Johnson?
Yeah, I would just say, Kathy, it sounds like you've been down this road several times. And if you can think about it one more time, see if there is anything. But otherwise, I'm ready to go ahead with it.
Right, Trustee Spinney.
Well, I'm concerned about the large number of residents who have spoken in opposition of it, and that it has been hanging out there so long, and that year after, or council, however many councils, I don't know how many have done it, but it's been hanging out there. And I would like to see it go away, whether we pass it, introduce it and pass it, or introduce it and not pass
I
it.
sort of agree with Bill. I think that, Dick Cates has put in a yeoman's job on this. I mean, I'm convinced that he's really went beyond the Call of Duty, to be honest about it, and fair. And I think the comments that he made, I think should be readdressed with Kathy. I mean, attorneys, well, they're both attorneys. I mean, they have to work this out. And I think that's why Bill had the right answer. Let's give this another shot. I've been there before. I'd sure like to see this condo, this commercial, I'll call it the commercial condos, then, for lack of a better word, those 4 units. I'd like to see a resolution to this that's more along the line with the residential condominiums completely. So that's where I'm at. I think this is very technical legal work.
Okay, all right, thank you. All right, Kathy, again, I will move to introduce, and then, depending on what happens, there's additional comments and massaging of the language that takes place if it does get introduced. All right, so let's see where we're at then. May I have a motion to introduce ordinance MC7, 2011?
So moved.
Second.
A roll call vote, please.
So we have a motion to introduce by Trustee Rentz and a second by Trustee Johnson.
Right,
Okay.
right.
Call the roll.
Yes, please.
Okay. Trustee Rentz?
Yes.
Trustee Johnson?
Aye.
Trustee Spinney?
Yes.
Trustee Grable?
Yes.
Trustee Cates?
Yes.
All right, the motion carries and the ordinance is introduced. Thank you. Do we need to cover anything else tonight, or do you want to take the notes and go through?
We will publish this as required by the state, and we'll take this back and look at it, and then if there are policy issues, we can bring it to you in the meantime.
Yep.
So that when it is right for, when we're allowed to take action, final action in December, so we can look at it at the next meeting possibly with the unresolved policy issues.
I do want to make sure, and I'm going to say and give Cates a lot of credit again now, that there's some questions here that need to be resolved, and that's in those condos. I'm not a condo expert like Chris is, nor a condo legal expert like they are. But I think we have to be respectful of legitimate questions that were based upon a heck of a lot of study.
Well, we can have another go-around to try to resolve some.
Right, and what we'll do on the staff end is just isolate those issues and bring them back at the next council meeting, and then if that results in further amendment to the code, we'll make sure that when the code comes back, it will contain those amendments.